When recording a band, you may have some acoustic instruments like acoustic guitar, drums, a flute, or singers, and you may also have some electric instruments like a keyboard or a bass guitar. In this episode, I'll explain some of the different inputs the MixPre can handle. Probably the most common input type would be a mic input, and this is what will be used to capture any acoustic sound source. For this reason, all of the GRN presets have this input type set as the default. So for this type of input, just plug in the microphone using an XLR cable and away you go. But let's say you want to record an electric bass guitar. The best way to do this is by running it through a DI box. But if you don't have a DI box, you can plug it directly into the MixPre. But be aware, because of the impedance of the MixPre's inputs, you will lose some of the high frequency content of the signal. But this probably isn't an issue when recording bass, as it contains mostly low frequencies. Start by connecting the bass guitar to one of the inputs using a 1/4" plug. Go to the input settings for that input by pressing its level control knob. Touch Input so that it lights up green, and change it to Line by either using the rotary encoder on the right hand side of the machine or the arrows at the top of the touchscreen. Then press the rotary encoder to select it. An electric keyboard can be recorded the same way. Either connect one 1/4" plug to one input for a mono signal, or a pair of 1/4" plugs to two inputs for a stereo signal. In this example, I'm going to use inputs 1 and 2 as a stereo pair for the keyboard. Go to the input settings for input 1 and set the input type to line. You will also need to manually link inputs 1 and 2 as shown. With inputs 1 and 2 linked, adjust the balance so it's centered using the input 2 level control knob. Then use the input 1 level control knob to adjust the input level. Recording an electronic stereo sound source can also be done using the stereo auxiliary input. This is ideal for recording a stereo keyboard. Use a stereo cable with a mini plug to connect the keyboard to the MixPre's auxiliary input. Then, go to the input settings for input 1 and set the input type to aux-in1. Then, if you haven't already done so, link inputs 1 and 2. But maybe you're recording several sources and inputs 1 to 4 have already been used by other instruments. In this case, inputs 5 and 6 are great for a stereo keyboard. But I'll talk about this in episode 21.